Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Robert Scott, Commissioner of Education here at the Texas Education Agency, and this is the time that we announce performance ratings for campuses and districts across the state of Texas. In a few short weeks, our kids will be going back to school, and we use this rating system to let parents know how their campuses and how their districts are helping improve the lives of Texans all across the state. Now, we're doing something a little bit different this year, and joining me, we have some special guests with us. Kimberly O'Malley, Vice President of Pearson, James Palmer, Superintendent of Burton ISD, Gail Stinson, Superintendent of Lake Dallas ISD, David Belding, High School Principal for Weatherford ISD, Weatherford High School, Keith West, High School Principal for Madisonville ISD, Madisonville High School, Lisa Nixon, Middle School Principal for Pearland ISD, Robert Meyer, Director of Research Testing and PEAMS for Belton ISD, and Buck Gilcrease, Superintendent of Hillsborough ISD. Now, they are folks who, after I sent the letter out to school districts asking for input on the accountability system, had written into the agency. And I think they have a very unique perspective, and have them here today to provide an educator's perspective on the use of our accountability system. So that being said, I want to walk through the results for this year. And then we're going to cover a lot of ground here. So those of you who are typing, I hope you're quick typing and quick on taking notes. You might want to be recording this as well. For districts this year, 239 of our districts were rated exemplary. 597 received the second highest rating of recognized. 298 are academically acceptable, and 30, regrettably, are academically unacceptable. For our campuses, 2,624 achieved exemplary in the rating system. 3,153 achieved recognized. 1,456 are acceptable, and regrettably 101 are academically unacceptable. Now, that represents a significant achievement for the public schools of the state of Texas, given where we have come. And the educators around this table, we had lunch and we were talking about going back to the days of tabs, teams, TOS, and now TACS, and where we're moving with the end-of-course assessments. We have increased the rigor in the accountability system over the many years exponentially. We have added more tests. We have added more cells, more opportunities for success or failure. And the legislature has responded, recognizing that we've raised the rigor of our system. And I know this year there's a lot of discussion about the Texas projection measure. And I intend to meet that discussion head on. We have a lot of data to share with you, and we're going to provide you a question and answer document that gives you very detailed data about the Texas projection measure. Where I want to start is to look at this data, and let's take an independent analysis of it. You know, there's been much said about the Texas projection measure, so I want to just go through a few quick slides and say let's take an independent look and some exterior factors that are impacting our public schools, and let's look at the trends that we see outside of this issue around TPM. Can we put up the slides, please? If you want to look at overall student achievement, do we have it coming up? There we go. If you just look at TACS results alone, without TPM, we had increases. 9% increase in African American students and an 8% increase for Hispanic students. Math TACS scores also show a 5% increase for African American, Hispanic, and economically disadvantaged students. Without the Texas projection measure, we're seeing still solid improvement across the board. Next slide, please. Let's take a completely independent from TACS test. If you don't like the TACS test, you don't like the way the data is presented, let's look at the national test. Let's look at NAEP. Our Texas African American students tied for first place with Massachusetts students on the NAEP exam. Among white students, Texas earned the 4th highest score on the NAEP math exam. Among Hispanic students, Texas 8th grader had the 4th highest score in the nation on math. Overall, Texas ranked 18th. African American 4th grade students earned the 3rd highest score on the NAEP math exam. Texas white 4th graders tied for 5th place with North Carolina, and Hispanic students ranked 8th nationwide. So independent of TACS, independent of TPM, a national test, our students are competing very well across the country. Next slide, please. Let's look at AP exams, another independent indicator. The number of students taking has increased, and the number of students scoring 3 or better has increased. Hispanic students had a 16% increase over the number of students scoring 3 or higher in 2008. Next slide, please. ACT. Now, this is important because, historically you see SAT and ACT scores that tend to trend flat. Our scores reached an all-time high in 2009, but that's not what really encourages me. If you look over the past several years, the college readiness component of ACT, our goal is all students college and career ready. The increase for our students went from 17 to 22%. Are we where we want to be? No, but a 29% increase since 2005 is a positive and encouraging trend line for the state of Texas. Next slide, please. Other recognitions that Texas has received. There was a very recent report issued by Jobs for the Future that found that there are 6 things that a state can put into place to effectively keep kids in school and get their high school diploma. And Texas is the only state that has all 6 in place in current state law and policy at the state level. Texas earned a grade of A on its standards and assessments under Education Week's Quality Count Survey. And I would point out that 3 Texas school districts have won the Broad Prize, more than any other state. Again, positive, encouraging signs. Next slide, please. Graduation and dropout rates. Wonderful debate that we talk about. This is the worst way in the world to look at graduation dropout rates. This is an attrition rate. This is counting the number of 9th graders in 1 year, 4 years later, the number of high school graduates. Everybody else is considered a dropout. If the student moves to another country, if they unfortunately pass away, they're counted as a dropout under this definition. So I want you to look at what happened in our system. Back in the early to mid-90s, we saw that increase. But every year since the late 90s, early 2000s, we've seen that number on the decline. Now, are we to absolute zero yet? No, but we are making steady progress. Now, keep in mind what happened during those years. During those years was the implementation of our state accountability system and raising standards across the board, going from TABS to TEAMS to TOS to TAX, all of those different assessment systems, raising the level of rigor in our public schools. And still that attrition rate is now falling. Why is that? Because our public schools have responded and have gotten programs and interventions that enable students to get their high school diploma. And I'll speak more about the intervention side later. Next slide, please. Now, every governor in the country signed a compact 5 years ago to calculate graduation rates the same way. It was the National Governors Association Compact for Graduation Rates. Using that definition, 80.6% of Texas public high school students graduate on time. Another 8.6% stay in school. 1.4% receive a GED, and 9.4% drop out. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we wanted to do was to be as completely transparent as possible when reporting all of this data. And sometimes that gets us in trouble because we have a very open system, and it's open to examination, it's open to debate, and it's open to manipulation sometimes. So every high school in the state of Texas will have this analysis done, and it's on our website now. This is Bowie High School in Austin ISD, and it's particularly a school that I care a lot about. It's because where my kids go to school is Bowie High School. So every high school will now have this type of information posted on TEA's website. If you look at 2005 and 2006, you would have seen 712 brand new 9th graders. 106 left for other public schools. So what we've done is for every school, we looked at the cohort of 9th graders and figured out what happened to those children. Let's look at the next slide. So every high school in the state of Texas will be able to show 28 went to schools in other states, 11 began homeschooling, 32 to return to their home school country, 6 enrolled in private schools, 5 enrolled in early college early to pursue a degree, and fewer than 5. Now look at that one that says they enrolled in college early. And think about the attrition rate I just spoke to you about. If a student leaves after their junior year to go to college, that attrition rate definition counts them as a dropout. So they're counted as a dropout under that definition, but they're in college. That is a little quirk that I think it's interesting to point out. So every high school, you can go on there and the public can absolutely know what happened to the kids. Next slide, please. I think we're done. I really put that data up there just to show, outside of all of this discussion that we're having about growth, and the discussion should be about growth. I mean, that is what the legislature called for in the creation of a growth measure for our schools. And